are!
What you claim to be!
I'm not asking twice!
I'm FBI Special Agent Marcus Rivera. This is my
I don't give a damn what you claim to be! Ow! No!
A man in a dark suit stood at the Interstate 10 checkpoint, 70 miles outside of El Paso, holding his federal credentials while 3 ICE agents surrounded him, hands hovering over their holsters. The temperature was pushing past 100 degrees, the asphalt shimmering with heat, and the only thing standing between him and an illegal detention was a gold badge that the agents were refusing to respect. What they didn't know was that the man standing there wasn't an undocumented immigrant. He wasn't a scared ordinary citizen, and he was definitely not someone who would let a flagrant constitutional violation slide. He was FBI Special Agent Marcus Rivera, born and raised in Houston, Texas, with 12 years of federal service investigating exactly the kind of abuse of authority he was about to suffer. And when he refused to step out of the vehicle without probable cause, the ICE agents made decisions that would cost the federal government $11 million. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be heard, and your subscription helps us bring more truth to light. The checkpoint on I-10 had been operating for 7 years, theoretically to intercept contraband and illegal immigration within the 100-mile border zone. In practice, it was a notorious spot for stops based on appearance, systematic racial profiling, and agents who treated federal authority as a license to ignore constitutional rights. Agent Rivera knew the statistics. 82% of people detained there were Hispanic, despite representing only 43% of the traffic. He had seen internal reports about ignored complaints, supervisors who encouraged intuition over probable cause, and a departmental culture that measured success by the number of arrests rather than legality. But Rivera had never passed through this specific checkpoint before. He was driving back to Houston after a meeting in El Paso regarding human trafficking, a federal case that ironically involved cooperation with Homeland Security. It was 2:22 p.m. on a suffocating Tuesday in July when he saw the orange cones narrowing 3 lanes down to 1. He thought it would be routine. Show the badge, wave, drive on. He was wrong. ICE agent Garrett Sullivan saw the dark Chevy Tahoe approaching, and something in his brain triggered an alarm. Hispanic male, alone, expensive vehicle, slightly tinted windows. Sullivan had 9 years at the checkpoint, 847 arrests on his record, and prided himself on never letting a suspect pass. When Rivera stopped and rolled down the window, Sullivan didn't ask for identification politely. He demanded it. Documents. Now. Rivera, trained to de-escalate, responded calmly. "Good morning, officer. I am Special Agent Marcus Rivera, FBI. Here are my federal credentials." He extended the badge through the window, expecting immediate professional recognition. Sullivan looked at the credentials for 3 seconds and handed them back. "Step out of the vehicle." Sullivan's body cam captured everything in 1080p with a precise timestamp. It captured the confusion on Rivera's face. It captured the commanding tone devoid of explanation. It captured the exact moment a lawful stop turned into a federal violation. "Excuse me, what is the probable cause for me to exit?" Rivera kept his hands on the steering wheel, visible, his voice firm but respectful. "I showed you valid federal identification. I'm not going to repeat myself. Step out of the vehicle, or I will remove you by force." Sullivan already had his hand on his radio, calling for backup. 2 other agents were approaching. How is it possible that a trained federal agent with valid credentials on American soil 70 miles from the border becomes a suspect simply for existing while Hispanic? Rivera knew the law better than Sullivan ever would. Internal checkpoints can only detain vehicles briefly for citizenship inquiries. Without articulable probable cause, prolonged detention or a search is a pure Fourth Amendment violation, and a federal badge should have ended the interaction instantly. But Sullivan didn't see a federal agent. He saw a brown man who dared to question his authority. "I am recording this," Rivera said calmly, placing his phone on the dashboard. "You are violating my Fourth Amendment rights. There is no probable cause for prolonged detention." The second body cam, from the newly arrived Agent Cole Briggs, captured Sullivan rolling his eyes. "Oh, we've got a roadside lawyer here. Get out or we break the door down." 3 federal agents surrounding another federal agent. No crime, no cause, no justification other than phenotype. The irony would be comical if it weren't terrifying. Rivera faced an impossible choice. Step out voluntarily under illegal coercion, validating the abuse of power, or remain in the vehicle exercising his constitutional rights and risk a violent escalation. He chose the law.
You're breaking my
I am
arm.
not stepping
Stop
out
it.
without a warrant or articulable probable
see your
cause.
hands.
I have identified myself as a federal agent. This detention is illegal. Sullivan didn't hesitate. He wrenched the door open, grabbed Rivera's arm, and yanked him out while Briggs went for the other side. The body cam shook with the sudden movement, but the audio remained crystal clear. You are under arrest for obstruction of a federal officer. Obstruction, the favorite charge when rights are exercised and officers run out of legal arguments. Rivera, who had arrested international traffickers and rescued kidnapped children, was now handcuffed with his hands behind his back on 120-degree asphalt while drivers passed by in shock. You are making a catastrophic mistake, Rivera said as he was hauled up. My office will be notified in an hour. This checkpoint will be investigated. Every single one of your arrests from the last 5 years will be reviewed. Sullivan laughed. Sure it will, buddy. Let's see if your badge is real. As if an FBI credential could be forged well enough to fool a visual inspection? As if a genuine agent didn't have direct phone numbers for supervisors who could confirm his identity in 2 minutes. They put him in a detention van. 98 degrees inside, no water, no phone call, no Miranda rights read. Rivera sat on the metal bench and did exactly what he trained other agents to do in hostile territory. He memorized everything. Times, names on badges, vehicle numbers, every word exchanged. He turned his humiliation into meticulous evidence. Meanwhile, at the FBI field office in Houston, Rivera's absence was triggering alarms. He had a scheduled call at 3 p.m. regarding the human trafficking case. When he didn't pick up and didn't reply to messages, his partner, Agent Tony Delgado, called his cell. Straight to voicemail. He called again. Nothing. At 3:37 p.m., Delgado activated the missing agent protocol. He located the last GPS ping from Rivera's phone, I-10 checkpoint, mile 857. He called the checkpoint supervisor directly, demanding information on a federal agent. The call, recorded per federal policy, captured Supervisor Marcus Hendricks stuttering. We have an individual here claiming to be FBI, but we're verifying. You claim? Delgado exploded. Put Marcus Rivera on the phone now, or I swear 20 armed agents will be there in 30 minutes. Hendricks hung up. He ran to the detention van. Rivera was sitting calmly, sweat running down his face, but his posture remained upright. Your office is calling. They sound angry. I imagine they do. Rivera didn't smile. He showed no relief. He simply handed over the direct number for his supervisor, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Linda Yamamoto. Yamamoto's call to Hendricks lasted 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Her volume was loud enough to be picked up by Sullivan's body cam 15 feet away. Words like federal lawsuit, civil rights violation, criminal investigation, and career ending echoed through the checkpoint. At 4:03 p.m., exactly 101 minutes after the initial stop, Rivera was released. No apologies, no acknowledgement of error. Sullivan simply removed the cuffs and handed him his wallet. You're free to go. Rivera rubbed his wrists, which bore deep red marks. I need the full names of all 3 of you, badge numbers, and the regional supervisor, and copies of all body cams. Sullivan crossed his arms. You'll have to request that through official channels. Oh, I will request it. Rivera climbed into the Tahoe, started the ignition, and looked Sullivan directly in the eye. And when I'm done, this checkpoint won't exist anymore. Rivera drove straight to the FBI office in Houston. 176 miles of cold rage and strategic planning. He didn't go home to change clothes. He didn't stop to eat. He walked into the federal building at 6:47 p.m., still in his rumpled suit with visible handcuff marks, and went straight to Yamamoto. I want a full federal lawsuit, he said without preamble. Fourth Amendment violation, illegal detention, false imprisonment, and a pattern of conduct under 42 U.S.C. 1983. And I want a criminal investigation into how many other people were illegally processed at that checkpoint. Yamamoto, a 24-year veteran who had seen it all, had never seen an FBI agent detained by another federal agency. I already have a DOJ lawyer waiting for your call, and the director wants a full report tomorrow morning. This is going up the chain, Marcus. It went up fast. Within 72 hours, the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General opened a formal investigation. Within a week, the ACLU of Texas joined the case representing Rivera. In 2 weeks, the El Paso Times published an investigation into the checkpoint, revealing 127 complaints in the last 3 years, all ignored by internal supervision. Rivera's FOIA request yielded 340 pages of documents that painted a devastating picture. Internal emails showed supervisors celebrating high numbers of arrests without once mentioning legality. Spreadsheets revealed that 91% of people detained for more than 15 minutes were Hispanic, despite initial suspicion, rarely resulting in the discovery of any illegality. Training reports showed that agents were explicitly taught to ignore municipal and state badges, but instruction regarding federal credentials was vague, left to agent discretion. Most devastating, body cam footage from the previous 6 months. Rivera wasn't the first person to identify as a federal officer and get detained anyway. Border Patrol agent Maria Santos, who was Hispanic, had been detained for 47 minutes in April until supervision confirmed her employment. Detective Eddie Morales of the El Paso police, in plainclothes driving home, spent 2 hours in a detention van while Sullivan verified his badge. The pattern was undeniable. If you were brown and dared to question the checkpoint's authority, credentials didn't matter. The following March, Rivera filed a federal lawsuit in the Western District of Texas. The 67-page complaint detailed not only his own detention, but a systematic pattern of constitutional violations. It named Sullivan, Briggs, and Hendricks individually, and the Department of Homeland Security institutionally. Have you ever wondered how many people without a federal badge passed through that checkpoint and simply accepted illegal treatment because they didn't have the resources to fight? The federal government initially denied everything. Their response claimed the checkpoint was legal. Sullivan had reasonable suspicion based on Rivera's nervousness, and the detention was within permissible authority. They didn't mention the FBI badge. They didn't explain the 101 minutes of detention. And they definitely didn't address the statistical pattern. It was a catastrophic strategic error, because it forced Riley and Campos, the ACLU firm representing Rivera, to pursue aggressive discovery. And discovery revealed that there were additional videos that Homeland Security hadn't voluntarily shared. The body cam of a fourth agent, Jennifer Moss, who was in training that day. Her camera captured Sullivan saying to Briggs while Rivera was in the van, "These guys think a toy badge makes them special. Need to show them who's boss out here." Moss, horrified by what she witnessed, voluntarily handed a copy of the video to Rivera's lawyers after reading about the case. She was fired 3 days later for violation of protocol. She immediately became a witness for Rivera with a retaliation lawsuit of her own. In July, 18 months after the initial detention, the case went to trial in federal court in El Paso. Judge Martha Rojas, a federal appointee known for zero tolerance regarding abuse of authority, presided. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury watched the full body cam footage 4 times. They heard a constitutional law expert from the University of Texas explain exactly why the detention violated the Fourth Amendment. They saw statistics demonstrating undeniable racial profiling. They watched Moss testify, tears streaming down her face, about a culture of casual racism and non-existent supervision. Sullivan testified for 3 hours. He insisted he had legitimate safety concerns because Rivera appeared nervous and refused to obey lawful commands. Under cross-examination, he crumbled. "Agent Sullivan, you saw Agent Rivera's federal badge, correct?" "I saw something he claimed was a badge." "Are you trained to recognize FBI credentials?" "We received general training." "Yes or no? An FBI badge has a hologram, an official seal, and a unique number. Did you see these features?" "I didn't examine it in detail." "Why not?" 7 seconds of silence. "I didn't think it was necessary." "Because you had already decided to detain him based on appearance, isn't that true?" "Objection." The government lawyer jumped up. Too late. The jury had seen the truth in his silence. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 22 minutes. When they returned, juror number 7, a retired teacher named Dorothy Chen, looked directly at Sullivan as the verdict was read. Liability found on all counts. Fourth Amendment violation, guilty. False imprisonment, guilty. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, guilty. Pattern of conduct under negligent supervision, guilty against Homeland Security. Then came the part that drained the color from Sullivan's face. Compensatory damages of $3 million, punitive damages against him personally of $500,000, and punitive damages against DHS of $8, $2 million. Total, $11 million. The largest single verdict against an internal checkpoint in federal history. But the money was secondary. Judge Rojas didn't end there. She issued a permanent injunction demanding immediate reforms. All agents at the I-10 checkpoint had to undergo 40 hours of training on constitutional rights, racial profiling, and recognition of federal, state, municipal credentials. Mandatory body cams for 100% of interactions, without exceptions, with video reviewed weekly by an external supervisor unaffiliated with DHS. An independent complaint system managed by a civilian ombudsman with the power to investigate and recommend discipline. All detentions exceeding 10 minutes required supervisor approval with written justification. Demographic stop statistics to be published quarterly online. And the checkpoint would be inspected annually by a federal monitor until 2029. Sullivan was fired before the verdict was officially recorded. Briggs received a 90-day suspension without pay and was transferred to administrative work. Hendricks retired voluntarily with a reduced pension. Moss, the whistleblower, was reinstated with back pay and a public apology. But the impact went beyond individuals. The Department of Justice used the Rivera case as a basis for a pattern and practice investigation of 14 internal checkpoints in Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. 7 were permanently closed. Another 7 implemented Judge Rojas's reforms voluntarily to avoid lawsuits. Rivera returned to work 3 weeks after the verdict. He donated $3 million of the settlement to the Texas Civil Rights Project, an organization that defends illegally detained immigrants who lack the resources to fight. He used another $1 million to create a scholarship fund for Hispanic students interested in law enforcement, specifically those who wanted to change the system from within. I had the badge, the resources, the legal knowledge, and the entire FBI system behind me, Rivera said in an interview with the Texas Tribune 6 months later. And I was still treated like a criminal by my own federal government. Now imagine an undocumented family, not fluent in English, without a lawyer. How many times does this happen and no one ever knows? Subsequent Freedom of Information requests revealed that the I-10 checkpoint alone had detained 2,847 people for more than an hour in the 5 years prior to Rivera's detention. Of those, only 340 resulted in any kind of criminal charge. An 9% success rate, but an 1% rate of humiliation and constitutional violation. Sullivan tried to appeal the verdict. The Fifth Circuit denied it in a unanimous decision that cited the body cam evidence as devastatingly clear regarding his discriminatory intent. He tried to declare bankruptcy to avoid the personal $500,000 judgment. A bankruptcy judge denied it, ruling that punitive damages for intentional misconduct are not dischargeable. To this day, Sullivan owes $380,000, paid through wage garnishment from the mall security job he got after his firing. It will take him 23 years to pay it off completely. A source close to him reported that he still insists he was just doing his job. Moss, the whistleblower, now trains federal agents on ethics and accountability. Rivera was promoted to unit supervisor at the FBI and leads a task force on racial profiling in federal law enforcement. The checkpoint at mile 857 still exists, but now it has a large sign. This checkpoint operates under federal monitor supervision. To report concerns about treatment, call 1-800-DHS-WATCH. Below, in Spanish, Usted tiene derechos, conozca sus derechos. You have rights, know your rights. And on the wall of the training room for every new ICE agent in Texas, there is a photo of Marcus Rivera next to a simple text. A federal badge is a federal badge. The Constitution has no exceptions for convenience. Learn now or pay later. 3 words on a gold badge changed national policies, but it shouldn't have taken a badge for dignity to be respected. How much longer will it take until every person, regardless of color, credential, or country of origin, is treated with the presumption of innocence that the Constitution promises? If this story impacted you, you can't stay silent. Hit the like button right now, because that helps the algorithm show these stories to more people who need to see them. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next cases we're going to bring you. Leave a comment. Have you ever experienced or do you know someone who has experienced discriminatory treatment at a checkpoint, airport, or police stop? Your story matters. And if you believe body cams should be mandatory in all police interactions without exception, comment "Body cam saves" down below. Share this video with someone who needs to know their rights. Knowledge is the only weapon they can't take away from you. See you in the next case.